you flag it, and when you are reviewing thoroughly, then you can come back and edit, get your confirmation on. The third stage of three-pass approach is you are going in-depth understanding. So read the paper critically and thoroughly. Now, here you are analyzing the paper as a researcher who has, just like you have done the study yourself, or you are mentally playing a role of the same researcher who has published the study and thinking that what if I was the researcher of this study, how I would have done this study. So when you will be mentally playing a role of that researcher, then you will be in a better state of critically appraising that study and drawing conclusions and vital information from that study. So you need to examine assumptions, methodology, data, and logic which they have incorporated and developed. You need to note down strengths and weaknesses and possible future directions, and if something was missing from that study, so everything kind of gaps which that study is having. So, and on that basis, you will be in a better position to decide if you are going to include that study for your referencing or not. Now we are coming towards the reading styles. Previously, we were considering that how to read the paper and what are the reading styles. So we have three reading styles for different contexts: horizontal style of reading, vertical, and diagonal. So horizontal style of reading, I'll be explaining these concepts in separate slides as well. So reading across multiple papers to compare findings. So you have two or three papers together and you are reading very quickly and comparing all of those studies together. If you are reading online, some modern computers allowing you to open different studies in different windows. While I was studying in Oxford, my supervisor, Kenneth MacDonald, he was having a very special computer screen. It was just like a very big TV, which was not high. It was not wide, but it was quite wide, but not quite high. And it was parabolic in shape. It was curvaceous. So he was, I think some company especially makes such kind of screens. So he was able to open 8 studies together and then jumble through them and editing material out of those. So the good part was that all of those eight opened studies were in his quick visual field. He was able to easily skim through those. So sometimes we see that how skillfully people use their strength and then technologies. Okay, so vertical reading is reading a single study in proper depth from start to end, and then we have diagonal study. Diagonal reading is like skimming, and it falls between horizontal and vertical, and it gives you a fair idea about the study, whether you are going to choose it for further reading or not. So in detail, horizontal reading, you are going to compare multiple studies on the same topic. Yeah, of course. And then you are trying to look for similarities and differences in hypotheses, methods, results. So different researchers working on similar topic in different contexts, and what are the differences in their hypothesis, what are the differences in their research assumptions, and which methodology they have chosen, why they have chosen certain methodology. So you are in a better condition to critically appraise some studies together, and that will help you to write down analytically. This is useful for literature reviews and synthesis writing, just like I said, analytical writing. Now, vertical reading, in-depth analysis of a paper. You are thoroughly reading single study, and you are trying to read introduction, methods, results, and discussion, everything. You are trying to understand carefully, and you are trying to understand the foundational approach of that study, and then how it is related to the study which is you are having in your mind. So whether it is connecting with your objective relevantly or not. It is that kind of a practice. Now, diagonal reading, very useful to save time. And it saves you to read through the whole irrelevant studies. So skim title, abstract headings, and conclusion very quickly. That is why it is called diagonal reading. You are reading through the lines rather than reading things word by word. Read the first sentences, and yeah, if you start reading a paragraph, first sentence tends to give you the idea of what this paragraph contains, and that will be enough for you to decide whether you are continuing to read this study. So that is the best technique for that purpose. It helps to decide whether or yeah, of course. So there are some fast reading techniques available, and these techniques are best when you practice them properly. Chunk reading, like you need to focus on certain phrases. If you are trying to study, if you are trying to identify studies which are trying to explain some scientific relationship or causal relationship, so you need to keep in mind a certain chunk of words, a certain group of words, and then while skimming through the paper, while reading the paper diagonally, you look for that bunch of words. So it is helping you to read fast as well. Then you do a preview. You skim titles, visuals, and headings quickly, and that will help you to understand fairly that what this study contains, whether it is of use or not. Yeah, use a pointer or finger to guide your eyes. That is the technique which we have been using from our childhood in schools or at homes. We are taught as children that use the finger to read to guide your eyes. Minimize regression, as I explained before, that uh, iterative reading or regressed reading it has to be avoided while you are trying to read fast. And of course, if you set time goals for each paper, whether you are going to read this for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes, this is your plan. And if you are sticking by the time, then you tend to read it fast and properly as well. And of course, you are on the basis of the objective, you can decide to skip sections which are not useful at that time, and then If you are trying to see the effects of the study, you are just directly reading the results. If you are that what kind of review has been, whether it is the updated review or not, you are not reading the results, you are reading the review of literature. So help you to read fast. Yeah, and of course, practice regularly to build speed. You need to take a paper and on a daily basis, and then try using these techniques to read fast. Good reading outcomes for academic writing. When you have done reading of a paper, you should be able to check yourself, check your performance, whether you have done the reading proper and fast or not. So if you are clear on the argument, if you are able to frame new ideas clearly, if you are able to understand the idea map of the researcher who has published the study, if you are able to understand, then the objective of reading the paper was fulfilled. Then if you know better than you knew before after reading the study, or in other words, your evidence base is stronger than before, then the objective of reading a research paper was fulfilled. So here I personally use a technique which is called EMAP or evidence map. I what I do, I make a Excel sheet which makes of the papers I have read. I takes their title of sometimes abstract in their location of study, and what is the take-home message that the study is providing. I record all these things, and that in the Excel sheet, and that ending of my reading. So you might like to use that technique as well. Improved structure and flow. If you are knowing better about the structure, the organization of the study, that how study was built, how study was planned, and how study was, if it was a social study, how population was decided, how the sample was drawn. So if you have the understanding better, then it gives the idea that you have read it properly. And then you are able to critically think about that study which you have just read. You are able to develop your own arguments on the basis of the arguments which were